How the little black dress became a closet staple. The little black dress, or the LBD, is an article of clothing that can be found in almost every woman's closet. Widely considered a fashion essential, the little black dress is lauded for its versatility and simplicity, and the perfect little black dress can be worn for years and years, effortlessly being dressed up or down depending on the occasion. But did you know that despite being such a staple in our closets today, the popularity of the little black dress is actually a fairly recent development? And prior to the 20th century, black was primarily associated with funerals, not fashion. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at the evolution of the little black dress, from its roots as mourning attire, to a practical wartime ensemble, to a chic wardrobe staple. But before we get into the rest of the video, I'd like to talk about today's sponsor, Thirdlove. I've had to sacrifice comfortability for cuteness when it comes to bras way too many times, but Thirdlove has proven I can have it both ways. Coming in dozens of styles, fabrics, and colors, their bras are designed with our bodies in mind. And whether your boobs are twins, sisters, or cousins 3 times removed, Thirdlove can help you find the bra that's right for you. I've experimented with a bunch of different bras over the years and had yet to find my perfect fit. At first I thought that was just the way the cookie crumbles, until I tried out Thirdlove's fitting room quiz, which recommended a new bra size for me to try after I mentioned the current issues I was having. It was a total game changer, and their classic t-shirt bra is my go-to bra now, and I love that the no-slip straps are secure and supportive, but still comfortable. The fitting room quiz has already helped over 18 million women find their true bra size, including myself, and who knows, you could be next. Thirdlove also has a team of expert fit stylists who are there to help you with whatever you may need, and in case the bra isn't exactly what you wanted, have no fear. When you shop at Thirdlove, returns and exchanges are totally free for 60 days. Thirdlove also gives back, and they're currently the largest donor of undergarments in the US, having donated over $40 million worth of bras to help people in need. So it's time to ditch your bad bras and get a better one that makes you look and feel great. Upgrade your bra today and get 20% off your first order at thirdlove.com/ModernGurlz, or click the link in the description. Thanks again to Thirdlove for supporting the channel. Now, let's get into it. The color black has always held symbolic meaning, being associated with power, mystery, and death in multiple cultures. One of the earliest recorded uses of black as a mourning color can be traced all the way back to ancient Rome, where elite members of society would wear toga pulla, dark togas, to funerals. Because the dyes that made this darker color possible were costly and hard to come by, the toga pulla was first and foremost a status symbol, creating a divide between the rich and the poor, with the latter simply wearing whatever clothing they had during times of mourning. Following the collapse of the Roman Empire in the 5th century, white became the standard color for mourning throughout medieval Europe, and due to its accessibility, it was popular with both royals and common folk. Out of a desire to differentiate themselves from their lessers, the upper class began to wear black and other dark colors to signify to observers that they were part of the official funeral procession, thereby continuing the Roman tradition of exclusionary mourning attire. Besides black dye being costly, sumptuary laws of the time period also prevented the lower classes from wearing black attire, ensuring that only the noble or extremely wealthy would be able to partake in the trend. In the 16th century, black clothing became further associated with nobility after members of the Spanish court began dressing exclusively in black, something which became nationwide protocol during the reign of Charles V. During this time period, Spain was one of the most powerful countries in the world, and the widespread use of expensive black cloth amongst its courtiers signified how wealthy Spain had become. This somber and austere attire was in stark contrast to the more colorful and extravagant clothing of other European courts, which allowed Spain to create their own cultural identity and unique aesthetic. Because of their growing influence, other European courts began to dress Spanish as well, which solidified public perception that black was symbolic of power and wealth, and further laws were instituted to prevent commoners from wearing the color. Black would remain a popular choice amongst European nobility until the second half of the 17th century, when the French court once again grew powerful, inspiring the return of bright and bold fashion into royal wardrobes. England's Georgian era, which began in 1714, marked the beginning of black clothing becoming more accessible to the masses. With commoners growing more wealthy because of blossoming industries, they began to emulate the fashions and customs of the royal court, which included mourning etiquette. As part of the mourning process, individuals were expected to set themselves apart from society, and in the pretentious cultural climate of the period, the best way to accomplish this was through one's clothing, and mourning attire became an elaborate affair. With the Industrial Revolution making black fabric more readily available, and thereby affordable, the growing middle class also began to dress in mourning attire, and with the popularity of fashion journals, the trend continued to trickle down the social ladder. By the end of the century, black mourning gowns became a must-have in any respectable woman's wardrobe, and if a woman couldn't afford a new mourning gown, she would dye or alter an older dress to be used for mourning instead. Despite the custom becoming more widespread, black cloth and dye was still very much a luxury, especially as the garments were only intended to be worn during times of mourning, and the lower class remained excluded from the trend. During the 19th century, mourning practices grew increasingly complex in England, especially amongst the upper class and nobility, who saw the strict adherence to these social customs as being indicative of one's good breeding. In their desperation to be accepted by old money families, the nouveau riche replicated their traditions, bringing mourning practices from England across the pond to the United States. As it had in the 1700s, the trend trickled down through the different classes, and by the end of the century, the explosive growth of the ready-to-wear garment industry made mourning attire accessible amongst the working class, allowing them to afford simple or second-hand black clothing. The growing publishing industry also helped with the popularization of mourning wear, with fashion magazines advertising the latest trends, while etiquette books instructed the public on how to properly grieve for different family members. As a part of the era's mourning practices, female widows were expected to wear simple black clothing for at least 2 years, although it wasn't uncommon to see someone opt to dress in this manner for the rest of their lives, as seen with Queen Victoria, who famously wore mourning attire following the death of her husband in 1861 until her own death in 1901. If a Victorian widow changed out of her mourning attire before the dictated amount of time, it was considered disrespectful to the deceased, and if she was still young and attractive, it might even be suggestive of sexual promiscuity. Despite becoming increasingly common during the latter half of the 1800s, black still wasn't seen as a particularly fashionable color. Since you were expected to wear it whilst in mourning, it became a societal obligation as opposed to a personal choice, and there were few opportunities to wear the color casually. By the end of the Edwardian era in 1910, black had also become associated with the service industry, specifically maids, who were made to wear a regulated uniform that consisted of a black day dress, an apron, and a cap. Because of these factors, the public's perception towards black clothing at the time was at worst associated with poverty and death, and at best it was seen as plain and uninteresting. Following World War I, mourning etiquette became less restrictive for practicality's sake, but people did continue to wear black, although not for nearly as long a period of time as the Victorian era, as nearly everybody knew someone who had died in the war. The rebranding of black dresses into a fashionable garment is often attributed to Coco Chanel, who designed a short, simple black dress that was featured in an October issue of American Vogue in 1926. In the issue, the dress was referred to as Chanel's Ford, referring to the popular Ford Model T, which is considered the first affordable automobile, thereby insinuating that the little black dress was a simple yet luxurious item that was accessible to the masses. Chanel herself once said about her simplistic design, quote, "Thanks to me, the non-wealthy can walk around like millionaires," a quote that I find rather funny considering Chanel's current pricing. In the issue, Vogue proclaimed that Chanel's black dress would become, quote, "a sort of uniform for all women of taste, the frock that all the world will wear." And a near century later, there's no denying that they were right. Now, no one is saying Chanel is the sole inventor of the little black dress. Similar designs had actually been featured in American Vogue months prior, with the company even stating earlier that year, quote, "For dinner and dancing in town and country, the little black dress has re-entered smart circles." What made the difference to consumers was the Chanel name, and with the brand's history of statement-making styles that were as groundbreaking and revolutionary as they were fabulous and fashion-forward, it was the stamp of approval the little black dress needed. The drop-waist design Chanel incorporated into the garment was also a reflection of the cultural zeitgeist. As women grew more independent, fashion became more functional and less restrictive, resulting in shorter hemlines and roomier silhouettes that emphasized the popular gamine look of the 1920s. The little black dress made its celluloid debut on Clara Bow in 1927's It, which is one of the most popular films of the year. Her character, Betty, was a working girl, and at one point in the film she transforms her work dress into a daring evening frock. proving to the public that black dresses could be chic and sexy. This not only changed the class's perception of black dresses as clothing for those in the service industry, but also helped further disassociate the color from mourning attire. As the decade progressed, other designers began featuring little black dresses, and sure enough, the trend soon made its way into department stores, who offered up the little black dress at various price points. And it's at this point in fashion history that we can say black dresses truly became accessible for everyone. When the Great Depression began in 1929, the little black dress remained popular, but for practical reasons instead of fashionable ones. With many people struggling economically, the little black dress's simplicity and versatility meant it could be worn at home, at work, and even whilst entertaining. Because of the tumultuous times, luxurious lifestyles were no longer seen as fashionable, and intimate cocktail parties became popular gatherings, which led to the rise of day to evening attire. Up until this point, there was a very clear divide between what you would wear in the daytime versus the nighttime. But because these cocktail parties were somewhere in between and more casual, clothing for the occasion was toned down to match, and a plain black dress could be easily dressed up with costume jewelry to suit the occasion. Just when things seemed to be getting better economically, World War II began. People of the time period were expected to ration and donate to the war effort, and luxury items were neither accessible or appropriate for everyday occasions. The little black dress provided women the opportunity to dress up without looking too flashy or taking resources away. Black dresses were also a favorite for women in the workforce as they were durable and easy to keep clean. And it eventually became so popular that in 1944, Vogue proclaimed that, quote, 10 out of 10 women have one. Around this time period, we saw the rise of the femme fatale archetype in Hollywood, and these openly sexual women were in direct opposition to the conservative and traditionalist sentiments that defined the post-war era. Femme fatales would often wear black, and the LBD soon began to symbolize mystery, danger, and promiscuity. And because of this connotation, little black dresses saw a small lull in popularity amongst high society women who didn't wish to be associated with such a scandalous garment. By the mid-1950s, the little black dress made a full-fledged return, with Christian Dior saying in 1954, quote, "You can wear black at any time. You can wear black at any age. You may wear it on almost any occasion. A little black frock is essential to a woman's wardrobe." Considering his iconic new look featured an assortment of black dresses, he was definitely a little biased, but that doesn't mean he was wrong. In the 1961 film Breakfast at Tiffany's, Audrey Hepburn as Holly Golightly makes a show-stopping entrance in a floor-length black dress designed by Givenchy, signifying that the little in the little black dress had become optional. Styled with pearls and gloves, the ensemble is undoubtedly glamorous, proving how far the outfit had come since its days as mourning attire, and the character dons several other little black dresses over the course of the film. The rest of the 1960s were a low point for the little black dress, as the era's fashion focused on frivolity and fun as opposed to sophistication and simplicity, an understandable choice considering the bleak circumstances of the last 3 decades. That isn't to say that little black dresses were unheard of, as they were still being reinterpreted in the mod silhouettes of the decade, but they'd fallen out of favor to the point that a publication in 1966 said the little black dress will draw moths. In the early 1970s, fashion industry insiders proclaimed that the little black dress was back, and the trend quickly found a new life, with mini, midi, and maxi-length styles all coming into fashion as a reflection of the era's individualism. A particularly popular iteration of the dress was the schoolgirl-inspired style that was worn by Catherine Deneuve in the French film Belle de Jour. This exact style of collared dress was first popularized during the swinging 60s, but the little black dress version saw itself become a trend in the early half of the 70s, the 90s, and most recently in the 2010s. While the little black dress remained popular throughout the following decade, in the 1990s it was treated with a new level of reverence. At that point, Chanel's design was over 60 years old, meaning the little black dress as we know it had existed in generations of women's closets. Black clothing in general had become fairly mainstream at this point, something owed to the popularity of the punk and grunge movements, and its past as a color worn solely for mourning was essentially forgotten. The 90s was the era of supermodels and starlets, and hundreds of glamorous black dresses made appearances on TV, on runways, and on the red carpet. And in 1994 alone, we saw Princess Diana wear her iconic revenge dress, while Elizabeth Hurley sported the scandalous safety pin dress by Versace. While black dresses became a popular choice for fancier occasions, they also grew more common for everyday wear, once again proving their versatility. As we've entered the 2020s, the little black dress remains a tried and true fashion favorite. In an era where overconsumption runs rampant and the trend cycle is ever quickening, the LBD is a welcome reminder that some trends never die. Instead of being an item that you replace every season, the perfect little black dress should encapsulate your personal style philosophy, being the focal point of your outfit one day or serving as a blank canvas the next. It's been nearly a century since Vogue first predicted that the little black dress would become a closet staple, and there's no sign of that changing anytime soon. Whether it errs on the side of simplicity or is something that makes a statement, history has proven that a little black dress can stand the test of time. Thanks again to Thirdlove for sponsoring this video, and if you want to help support the channel, don't forget to go to thirdlove.com/ModernGurlz to get 20% off your first order. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!